Now, jumping straight into our webinar, we'll be looking at the important filing season dates. Between now and then, there are quite a few dates that our members need to take note of. If you wouldn't mind just taking us through some of those dates.
Yes, thank you, Yolisa. And as you mentioned, the tax indaba coming up. So today's dates are quite a long list, covering until the 6th of October 2023. So on the 25th of August 2023, we have the manual VAT 201 submissions and payments. On the 31st of August 2023, the electronic VAT 201 submissions and payments. And yes, August is the month for first provisional tax payments. So on the 31st of August 2023, the first provisional tax submissions and payments for the first period of 2023 for individuals, trusts, and companies with a February year-end. Then also the taxpayers registered for turnover tax on the 31st of August. It's the first 2024 payment for micro businesses registered for turnover tax. Then going over to September, on the 7th of September, the EMP 201 submissions and payments. On the 22nd of September, there's a public holiday also, so the date is, the last business day is 22 September 2023, the manual VAT 201 submissions and payments. Then on the 29th of September, the electronic VAT 201 submissions and payments. And then also at the end of September, the voluntary provisional payments, the third provisional payments for 2023 for individuals, trusts, and companies with a February year-end. And then before we have our next session in October, the 6th of October, the date for the EMP 201 submissions and payments. So it's quite an extensive list. And important dates, the provisional tax, the first payments for 2024, and then also the third provisional payments for the 2023 year of assessment. Thank you, Yolisa.
Unfortunately, over the past 2 weeks, the registrations on eFiling, despite everything else being updated from banking details to tax status, there is a technical issue or technical error being experienced where the pay-as-you-earn registration is being rejected. We have, however, been advised that the IT developers are aware and they have been alerted to this problem and are working on the resolution thereof. Now, Cecile, the pre-population of third-party data for deceased estates is something that's a little tricky. We know that there are tax practitioners who specialize with deceased estates. However, since the filing season commenced on the 7th of July, the return has actually been coming out blank. And although you do have the option of adding the third-party data, we know that there are actually strict validation rules that prevent you from adding third-party data. If you can just take us through what you know of this issue and if there's a workaround that our members can try to make sure that these returns are submitted timeously.
Yeah, thank you, Yolisa. Yes, we got used to the fact that even for estates, the third-party information is pre-populated, but due to a technical problem, these third-party data is not being pre-populated on the ITR 12 returns. And the workaround is that you can capture all those info manually, but on submission, there's an error message. Please note that this tax return was not processed because SARS could not match pre-populated third-party data to the submitted data on the return. Refresh your data on the return and resubmit or visit the nearest branch for assistance.
Right. To move to some of the new procedures, the systems or SARS implementations over the past month, I know one of the big things, Cecile, and you were there at that briefing session that was held, I believe, on the 31st of July, is SARS's intention to outsource debt collections. If you can just take us through some of the topics that were discussed at that meeting.
Yes, thank you, Yolisa. SARS briefed us on the outsourcing of debt and indicated that this will be implemented between the end of September and the beginning of October. All this will be done in a staggered way and not all debt will immediately be handed over to the outsource agents. SARS will issue a letter to the affected taxpayers by the end of this week. That was last week. And taxpayers are advised to regularize tax debt before the commencement of the outsourcing. Now, what debt is going to be outsourced? This is debt older than 5 years. But however, any debt that is under dispute and has unsuccessfully suspended will not be outsourced. So if there's a dispute lodged and the taxpayer applied for a suspension of payment, although it's older than 5 years, that debt will not be outsourced. SARS will establish a dedicated engagement team and a dedicated email channel to deal with any complaints which may arise from the outsourcing. That information was not shared with us, but as soon as we are in possession of that information, we will share that with our members. And then it's very important to note that all payments must still be made to SARS and no money should be paid to the outsourced companies. If the outstanding debt is handed over, statutory interest will still accrue on all outstanding amounts, and the cost for collection by the third party will be carried by SARS.
Historically, it has been common practice that SARS do not approve the release of funds when a resident trust was making a distribution to a non-resident trust. However, there have been developments with the South African Reserve Bank, and so now SARS had announced that they will actually consider an application to release funds distributed to a non-resident trust. For deceased estates, we were made aware that the region of registration is linked to the master's office where that estate was registered. For instance, if the estate was registered at the Bloemfontein Master's Office, that would translate to the Free State and Northern Cape region of registration, despite, or rather, regardless of where that taxpayer was registered pre-death. SARS has cleared it up to say that in terms of Section 240, a tax practitioner must maintain their own tax affairs and be tax compliant. And if they fail to do so, SARS would take steps to deregister such tax practitioners. Can a client deregister for VAT, and what is the process for deregistration? 100% when the taxpayer no longer meets the requirements or they've stopped trading, I know is one of the biggest requirements. A taxpayer can deregister for VAT. I would like now to hand over to eFiling and Zelda, who will be taking us through our expert corner, looking at the voluntary disclosure program.
The third principle, which I think is very important, and I think this is where we get a lot of queries, is that when applying for the VDP, the disclosure that you are bringing in, or rather the default that you are bringing in, should not be something that is already known to SARS. Now, you will benefit from the voluntary disclosure program by the fact that should you come through and disclose voluntarily any tax defaults that you may have, we will not pursue criminal prosecution. We will grant you relief regarding the understatement penalties that may ensue. That is under section 223, as per the understatement percentage table. And we will grant you 100% relief in respect of the administrative non-compliance penalties. But it is important to remember that an administrative penalty regarding the late submission of a return, we will not be able to give you relief. Please ensure that you receive an acknowledgement of your application. We have cases where VDP applications are made, and a year after somebody comes and says, what is happening with my application? And we've got no clue about that application. So please ensure that you've got an acknowledgement of receipt of that application. If you do not, contact us to say, can you track this? Give us a text number. We will try and track it with you or advise you in terms of how to properly make that application. We do not accept any payment arrangement that is more than 6 months, simply based on the reasonable expectation that it is a voluntary disclosure. A taxpayer comes through to say, I have a tax default. Therefore, there's an expectation, as well as it being a term and condition of the VDP, that those amounts should be paid. And note, all those defaults that are not under valid under the VDP, please remember the normal branch operations are still available to you to regularize. In a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, our intention is to have you as peaceful as the gentleman on your screen right now.